Welcome to my second video now on this, which is Huawei's Mate X6. It's their latest flagship foldable, and I was at the event in Dubai and I did post my first impressions video. So this is a follow-up to that because now it's my review with things that you want to know, like, for example, battery life, exact figures, how long does it take to charge it, and what is it like using all your favorite applications. I'm going to cover that, multitasking, we'll take a look at the cameras, although I will be using my camera samples from Dubai because, well, it was a fantastic location to be taking photos, and that is going to be the same as what I did cover before. However, there's going to be a lot more information too, and my overall thoughts on Huawei's latest Mate X6. Now, if you missed the first impressions video, well, I'm going to quickly show you what we do get included with the Mate X6. A SIM tray tool, you'll find our charger. So it's the 66 watt supercharge we've got from them. And it's an EU plug because this is the global version, Type C to Type A cable. Now, they do include this very nice case. I really do like it because it has a kickstand in it that you can swivel around. And it has that fake style lever on the back of it with a vegan leather, but you can spin it around so you can use it at different angles. It came in very handy when I was on a high-speed train, so I just propped it up, and on the airplane tour as well. I was watching some content on the screen, and I like it. It's nice and light. It doesn't add a lot of bulk to it, but the front screen, yes, is exposed to damage. I'll show you what I mean, because you see the back is protected. This corner here protected. If it falls and hits flat, it would hit the case first, but if it hits at that angle, then the outer screen is susceptible to damage, and it doesn't protect the spine either. So it's a minimal, lightweight case, and I just love how practical it is with the kickstand built into it. Now, the build, I think, happens to be the best foldable yet, and a lot of people, when I posted my first impressions video, they found that very hard to believe. Now, you're probably not factoring in that, number one, I've reviewed pretty much every single foldable that's out there. I've tested a lot of them now, and this hinge happens to feel like one of the best when it opens. It's very, very good. And the frame around the outside, it's excellent. So when it's folded, we are looking at 9.9 millimeters. It's all metal around here. And I do like the fact that there's no branding on this. It's not necessary because it's on the back here with it. And when you unfold it, it's 4.6 millimeters. Very thin. And it just feels so rigid and solid. It doesn't feel too lightweight or flimsy like some of the other models now that are getting a bit lighter. And I'm not trying to defend it being a little bit heavier because the weight of it is still very good though. It's 239 grams, which is excellent. So we have that vegan style leather on the back. It gives it a little bit of grip to it. It resists the fingerprints a bit better. Glass on the outside is the Kowloon glass. This is version 2 that they have. And it's with the cover display only, not the internal there. And then the camera's at the back. So we have the 50 megapixel main camera with the variable aperture. This goes from f1.4 to f4.0. It's 24 millimeters. We have the periscopic zoom camera for a foldable, very good at 4 times. And this is 48 megapixels and a 40 megapixel ultra wide camera. This one is 13 millimeters equivalent, and it's got a 120 degree field of view. 8 megapixel camera right here. They're the selfie cameras, which aren't the best, but of course you can fold it around and you use the outer camera for vlog footage or selfies, and it's much better quality, as I'll show you. Now, I do like the fact that they put the camera here, the inner screen camera, instead of having it in the middle. So it's the same 8 megapixels as the outer one, and a very nice screen here. So this screen is the 7.93 inches LTP OLED screen, 120 hertz. Peaks at 1800 nits, so it's very bright. I haven't been able to measure that. That's with the HDR. I get about 960 nits with my Spider X Pro measuring the screen, but I've used it in direct sunlight, as you can see now, and it is very clear. That's the main thing. I can see everything. It's good and nice and fluid. I'll get a little bit onto the performance, more onto that shortly. And one last look here at the outer screen. So this one is 6.45 inches, and again, it is an LTP AMOLED screen, and I think it looks excellent. 120 hertz too as well. So nice and bright, nice and clear, and I believe I'm doing it justice here with my capture. It's a very good looking phone. So around the edges here, this is curved. It makes it feel very comfortable in hand. I have very easy access to the power button, which is also a capacitive fingerprint reader. I'll demonstrate that now. So when I touch, it unlocks. and it has not failed me once. So it's working 10 out of 10 times. Most of the capacitive ones do. It's the optical in-screen ones that can be a bit of a problem. And I know there's other brands that do use ultrasonic, which are good, but you have to kind of reach down with your thumb here. Not a problem, and you get used to that. It still works well, but I think the side fingerprint readers with these foldable devices is still probably the way to go there. And again, that hinge opening it up feels very good. And I know that question's going to be there. It always is with foldables. What about the crease? Okay, when you run your fingers over it, you see it. And if I get my lights to shine on it, you can see that crease. It's probably a little bit better than the Samsung Galaxy Z Fold 6. It is. But it's not the best I have seen. But you're normally looking at the foldables, not to defend them again, straight on, and it doesn't become too much of an issue. When you're a foldable user, you kind of completely ignore that. You only think about it for maybe the first day, and then it's gone. Now, this ridge around the outside, it is raised, so there's a gap when you close it, so the screen's going to be touching together. And in fact, I was out in the desert in Dubai with sand blowing all over us, getting pretty much everywhere, in the phones, on the screens, no issues. And let's just turn this off. I don't see any scratches on it either. We've got the on-screen display, no problems. And the hinge, at one point it was making a couple of noises because I think a few grains got in here, but what I did is when I got home with some compressed air, I blew it all out. And then I even went as far as using the vacuum with a brush connection over it. And it's fine. There's really no problems. IR transmitter, loudspeaker there, microphone, Type-C port supports video out. 2 nano SIMs in this SIM tray, so no 3.5 millimeter and no micro SD cards. So one thing I want to set straight, and that is a lot of people said that, what am I talking about when I said that, oh, the Mate X6, it opens up and it is completely flat when it does so, and other phones are not flat. See how that is completely flat? So let me show you the Magic V3. See when that opens up? Does that look completely flat to you? See how it's curved slightly inwards by like just a few degrees? But that doesn't happen with the Mate. See how it is completely flat? Okay, and there's a few other foldables that I've tested out. It's got the same thing. And when you open it up, I always feel like I just have to force it open a bit more. But if I do, now it's completely flat. But see, when I let go, it still has that slight curvature inwards. So I'm not talking a pile of rubbish here when I mentioned that. And there were also a few comments of people saying that the V3 was exactly the same. Well, does it look exactly the same to you? I mean, look at the port locations there, the IR transmitter, microphone. It's all in different spots there. Okay, loudspeaker, slightly different. SIM tray, that looks a little similar there, but it's the other way around there, okay? So they're not identical. And when you look at the spines, okay, similarity there without having any branding on both of them. So you're probably concerned about how am I going to run all my favorite apps on this being, of course, EMUI, and you can run your Google apps, and I've been so far so good. I'm not really having any issues. So WhatsApp is working. I've got Google Maps on there that works, Play Store, even Gemini you can run on this. There is some limitations. For example, I'm using the Chrome beta because I just cannot install Google Chrome, the normal version. So what you really need to do is, when you're going to be using this phone, is try to source all your apps by directly installing the APK files or app gallery. This way, you're going to get maximum performance. For something like Genshin Impact and a lot of other games, I would recommend to try and find the APK files, get them maybe from their official website. One thing with the phone too as well, you've noticed this, because of the camera bump, the module, when you lay it flat, yeah, you're going to have a bit of this. And this is very common with foldables. Others do the same. But with this one, it's, yeah, particularly bad there. So you try and source the apps from App Gallery, and then you're going to get the maximum performance that you can. However, there's workarounds if you have to use GMS, sorry. So you've got Gbox, which I've installed. And this is how I have some of the things. This is why I've got Play Store right here. I mean, I can bring that up. I just installed before Genshin Impact to test out, and this is running then through Gbox. Now, Gbox does seem to be working just fine. Some people said it's a little bit hit and miss. I think with the new Harmony OS and say the Mate 70 series, the ones out of China, people are running into problems running things. But so far with this, it does seem to be working all for me fine. Just make sure you set the proper permissions so that everything is going to be able to run okay. Now, Android Auto, I have tried to get that to work. Unfortunately, so far, I haven't. I probably need G Micro, but I'm not too sure if that's going to work with it or it's still working. I need to investigate further on that. But it looks like so far, G Micro and Android Auto should be able to work the same way that you do it with the Pure 70 Ultra. But I need to confirm that one, okay? I just haven't been able to get it to work myself yet with that. So missing, as I said, that apps drawer because I just want to swipe up and have all of my apps there. But as it is, they're all here and widgets all in one. And I've tried to simplify things just for my review here too as well. So if you didn't see that first hands-on, I'll just go over a couple of things that I was showing in that video. Oh, that rocking is a bit annoying. This is the default first apps that you get. So there is some bloatware. You can see they also have these categories that you can easily disable and remove. I've seen now that a lot of other brands are also copying and doing this. And I don't particularly like this. It just means that additional time is needed to clean things up, which is a little bit annoying. Now, the internal storage is very quick. This was a big surprise to me. I was not expecting it to be this good. So this is UFS 4.0 speeds, at least, that we are getting. And really quick. You can see over 4,000 for the reads and writes, and the random access, yeah, phenomenal. That is very good, those speeds. And the battery runtime. Okay, so you're looking at, as I guesstimated in the other video that I've posted on this, I say between 7 and 8 hours of on-screen time. And running this is pretty similar here, but I did use a very high brightness to simulate more realistic workload on that. So if you're going to be using just the inner display, 7 hours. If you use the outer, only the outer, then you're looking around 9 hours of on-screen time. It's actually very good with this phone. So there's a few other things. So the charge time, although here we go, told me 23 minutes. That's actually incorrect. So it was around about 46 minutes to fully charge here. And you'll see the battery capacity. Just ignore this. It's because Antutu's not reading it correctly. Widevine cert, another gray area with the phone, that it's level 3. This means that we're not going to have Netflix, Amazon Prime Video that I've been testing out. They do work standard definition. Now, this is a problem that I hope Huawei can find a solution for, because it's really annoying to have such amazing displays and then stuck in standard definition. It really does look terrible. Oh, that's just a download there for the FreeBuds that I was working on. So there are a few things like that, but most of the apps, you can all find them, you can run them, and that is really hasn't been a problem for me to run what I want, apart from, yeah, the Netflix in standard definition, Android Auto, and map history too with Google Maps. For privacy reasons, I'm not going to load it up, but you just have to take my word for it that it is working. Google Maps, not an issue there too as well. Antutu score, well, what is it? Not amazing. So we're over 1 million points here. And for a 2024, late 2024 device, yes, compared to the competition, it's not a good score. There's no way that I'm going to just say that, oh, yes, it is amazing because I got this review unit from Huawei. No, it is low. And we know that this is a challenge that Huawei has. And I believe that they're going to definitely improve upon this. They're working hard to fix this problem and will continue to produce their own chips. And I will say what I said in the first video as well. The optimization of the ROM is very good. It's so smooth that you wouldn't think that it's got that Antutu score. It really does feel like, to me, in use, like it's a Snapdragon 8 Elite, or we have the Dimensity 9400. With just how well the ROM is optimized and the performance with general tasks. But what about gaming? Let's have a look. Multitasking on a foldable is very good because you can run the floating windows that I've just currently set up here. So you can resize those by just tapping here, make them whatever size you want. Of course, I can have split screen. So you have one on one side, one on the other. You can then go along and maximize them and move them about, minimize them too, and run them here from this tab. Now, if you are doing something very demanding, which I've done intentionally for this video, because I do have the shaders compiling in the background for Genshin Impact, and that is pretty much CPU loaded 100%. The scrolling, see how it's a little stuttery? That's to be expected. So if you do some very heavy multitasking, then you will notice it will affect the performance. And it's normally just with games if you have them in the background. So if I had Gmail open and I had Chrome beta and just some other stuff that was very light, and then you don't see this. Everything's fluid. But even though that is very demanding in the background, I do like the fact that I can swap over and open all these up and not really notice any slowdown with those animations. This animations and everything still seems to be very smooth. It's just what's going on in the background that is quite a bit demanding there. Now, I'll open up YouTube because there's one important thing I like to point out with foldables that a lot of people, well, most people would be aware of this. But if I bring it up, YouTube, you'll see that I have one of my own videos running. If I go along and just make this full screen, we're going to have those ugly borders, top and bottom. Okay, I've got it in portrait. Let's put it into landscape. A little better, but you're not really gaining that much more screen real estate when it comes to video content. So you have the ugly borders, and yes, I can zoom in to try and get rid of that, but then now we're missing out on content either side. This is where Huawei's Mate X-T is just the absolute best for video content because it's a trifold, and I do have a video on my channel of that, and it doesn't really have those borders. The only borders the Mate X-T has are very minimal like that because it's not quite a 16:10 aspect ratio. It's close to it. It looks excellent. So the borders there with media streaming content like that are going to be present. But when you're using, for example, Chrome and the UI and the multitasking, you do have that additional screen space that you're going to take advantage of. Now, one thing is synthetic benchmarks that would tell you that performance of this game shouldn't be as good as it really is. So Genshin Impact, despite having that, 1.3 million Antutu score, plays very well. This is on the absolute top settings and at 60 frames per second. Not a problem. You occasionally see a few little lags and stutters in different areas of the map and whatnot, to be expected. But it's not as bad as you would think it is. It does game quite well, the Mate X6. So how are the haptics on it? Well, they are good. If I just go along and just reply to something, I find the haptics to be nice little short pulses. They're not incredibly powerful, certainly not the best haptics that I've felt in a phone, but I'd rate this as being one of the top ones for at least a foldable. They do feel very good, the feedback we are getting from that haptics engine. Now, I am in a YouTube clip here, so what I'll do is play a sample track to test out these loudspeakers, and I'll crank that right up to 100% volume shortly. I just wanted to point out that voice calls, no issues. There is active noise cancellation with the voice calls. They sound good. Signal, I've not had any problems. I get on to 4G and 4G Plus, but we don't have 5G with this phone. But let's have a listen now to the loudspeakers at 100%. And over to video performance for our Mate X6. So with this outer camera here, the 8 megapixels, I can shoot 4K 30 frames per second, 4K 60, and the quality is still very decent. What I'm using now is the rear cameras instead of the outer 8 megapixel, and you get much better quality. And I could also swap over and use the ultra wide, and that means I can get a lot more in the shot. It's using electronic image stabilization, and very handy for people that vlog a lot, and maybe you're someone that does a lot of travel vlogs and things like that. You get really good quality out of the rear cameras if you do this. 4K 30 frames per second. This is our ultra wide, which is 40 megapixels. We get electronic image stabilization. Swapping over to the main camera now, you do see that transition, you notice it, but it's not too bad. Now we have optical and electronic image stabilization and 4x zoom camera. I can take this up to, that's 10x digital, and back to the 4x optical, finally the ultra wide again. Difficult situations, the HDR with the main camera, as you can see from that sample I just showed you, very good. Selfies with the front 8 megapixel camera still look decent and are usable, and our 4x optical camera can get some excellent results, as you can see now. These are shots that I took between 4x and 10x zoom, and with this shot here, this is the 4x optical. I now take it up to 10x, and you can see with that much digital zoom that yes, the quality does degrade somewhat. You do notice it when you crop in. Low light now performed very well. The main camera, the sensor,
As you can see from these shots, this is now a 4x shot, which is not ideal for low light, but it still worked well. And this is using the main camera for selfies, just flipping it around. Came out really good. And this is a 4x optical low light shot. Again, excellent. And then the main camera for low light, very good. This is where I think it definitely does excel and probably is one of the best foldable phones when it comes to cameras around. Really good results. This last shot is 4x optical zoom.
Now we have here, I think, one of the best foldables in terms of hardware. That hinge feels fantastic, very good, and it's a nice weight to it. It's not the lightest or the thinnest foldable out there now anymore, but it really has a nice feel to it compared to the others, and I really do like what I'm seeing with this hardware. Now the cameras, as I pointed out in this video from the samples I've shown you, can take some really impressive shots for a foldable phone, and the night shots too do look good, and I do like that sensor. We have seen it before, that variable aperture one, the main 50 megapixel camera, and then of course we've got the 4x optical zoom camera, very good to have in a foldable. Now the charging speeds at the 66 watts are still good, and we have the wireless charging too as well with this, and overall battery life compared to the competition is very similar. So where it stands out for me is the hardware and the quality of it, but we have, of course, the chipset. Now that chipset's using a dated process. The UI, this is EMUI, does run very fast and fluid, 120 Hertz. It's a great looking screen and no app store for some reason. There's another thing with the software as well, that some applications may be a bit difficult to run, like Google Chrome, for example. You need to use the beta. Maps, you won't have history. Android Auto looks like it could be complicated to get up and running. And a Widevine level 1 cert means Netflix, Amazon Prime Video, some of your favorite streaming video services are on standard definition on such a stunning screen, especially that inner one, is a big shame there. And I hope that Huawei can at least correct these little things, like add the apps drawer and maybe get a Widevine level 1 cert if that is possible. As it stands, it's a phone that is very expensive, so 1,999 euros at the launch event. Now, do expect that to drop down a little bit, so it's pricey, but you have some top-edge hardware, apart from the chipset, and a foldable with some very good cameras, and overall, really nice package. I do like what I'm seeing here with the Mate X6.